All right. So anybody checking this out? The title of this is a heartbreaking message, a heartbreaking story. So just to let you know, if you did click on this, sorry to disappoint you. This isn't about life changing events. This is just a heartbreaking guitar story. So if if you're not into hearing guitar stories, then I certainly understand. And, definitely you might want to just click off now. But if you can, just leave me a subscribe if you don't mind. I'm over here peddling subscriptions. Anyway, so this is just a little story about a boy and his guitar. But anyway, so coming up, like I really got into I was really big into music. Like we didn't have televisions and PlayStations and computers, and I mean we just had maybe one TV in the house, and we had our own individual radios. Of course, we go outside and play and shit. So, back then when I was a kid, my thing was I would now rap was a thing back then in like the early 80s, but it wasn't as big as it is now. And I loved hip hop, you know what I mean? That's all I wanted to hear, but the radio was mostly R&B, and it was like ugh. So what I would do is like every Friday and Saturday night they would play like hip hop on like the channels, like a couple hours and shit. And so what I would do was I would tape it and just listen throughout the week. But there still was all this other music out there. There was like what we now call like new wave and shit like that, but it was just pop music to me, or just music. But then I also found how I mean, I guess it was because the radios back then, it was, the things they primarily had like a mixture of music. So it wasn't necessarily all one kind. But I remember one particular thing now on television, of course, that was the other thing too. You only really had like 10 channels. And when you get to the last channel, all you have is these other channels that just have basically white scratchy backgrounds. But sometimes if you change it all the way back, you'll find like obscure channels and shit. So they had one, it was playing these rock videos. And there was one video in particular that, I mean, of course it appealed to my young pervy nature, because it was a lot of chicks in there that was like half naked. This was 80s, you know what I mean? So now, only time I ever really seen videos prior to this one, and the channel was called U68, the only time I ever seen videos prior to that was basically Friday night videos. And it wasn't really a big thing, but seeing this one video, it was a bunch of half naked chicks. So now I later found out that band was actually Def Leppard. The song was it's like Pyromania. It was in that era. Now I had been hooked, you know what I mean? I was hooked on rock metal. I was thinking that was metal. And to some sense, some point it is. But then again, maybe not. But either way, I started getting into other groups and shit like that. Another big one for me was Whitesnake. That was actually the first like tape I ever bought. I had some records, so it was like a few records I bought, and it was the first rock tape. Because actually, prior to that, oddly enough, I had Big Daddy Kane and the Fat Boys. Now, it was an issue with the Big Daddy Kane one because there was a lot of cursing on it, so Mom wasn't liking that too much. So, needless to say, it was a point of contention. But my thing was, I listened to hip hop, and then they had this new metal rock. Listened to them both. It was all good. So when I got sick of listening to tapes I made from it was like WBLS or sometimes. So I would make a bunch of tapes. It was Friday, Saturday night. When I got sick of listening to that, I would listen to some rock shit. Then, I mean, I really got into it. I loved all of what we now call, I call hair bands. A lot of the hair bands don't like that whole moniker, hair bands, but I don't know what else to call it because all these dudes was dressing like chicks with big hair. But the music was great. I loved the music. I couldn't really deal with the visuals as far as what they looked like, but they always had, saying half naked hot chicks in the videos. So that was kind of appealing at first, but then it was all about the music. And I had like bands that I really got into, like as far as like what you call hair band. Bands like Rat's a big one for me. Motley Crue, Whitesnake was what I now or later found out was Def Leppard. What else? I mean, it was just there was all these different ones. What I call it is the Columbia House bands that I listen to a lot of. And what I mean by Columbia House, there was this, I don't know, it was just some kind of like company that would advertise where they would send you a bunch of tapes for like a penny, and you just had to keep paying like a subscription. So I did that a couple times, and I got these big old boxes of tapes, and I was just picking whatever that looked good as far as rock goes. I even had some hip hop, but that was where I mostly got all my rock stuff from. And it was like Rat, Cinderella. There was a couple other ones like Brittany Fox. Never really caught on, but yeah. But the thing about that music was, I loved it, but it was always the faster upbeat songs was the ones I was always into the most. So I just kind of just eventually gravitated towards more faster music. But so we had, like I mentioned, there was U68. Then there was we had Friday Night Videos, right? Also, now that was actually on a regular channel and it'd come on later than Friday. But one day they actually had it on it was like on a daytime on like Friday. So I'm sitting down watching it, see what good videos are coming on. Then I saw it. Bam. Sweet Child of Mine. Guns N' Roses. Now, of course, this was the era of the hair band, but they were nothing like all the other hair bands. They were like stripped down, raw, and hard. I never had the inclination prior to that to want to play guitar. But as soon as I saw Slash playing a guitar, that's what I knew I wanted to do. I literally got through watching the video, walked into my mom's room and was like, yo, I want to play guitar. The next year, Mama got me one for Christmas. Never put that shit down again. It took me a while to really get into learning how to play it, but I was always noodling on it. Had it with me all the time. And like I said, I was always wanting to hear something that was a little bit faster and more raw than a lot of the hair bands. Even though I still loved them, I needed more. Guns N' Roses was that. But then again, I needed more. So just before I left New York, his homeboy gave me it was a tape. On one side, it was Twisted Sister. The other side Master of Puppets. I listened to Twisted Sister first, and I think because they had some stuff that was in the news, so it was like, yeah. But I put on that Master of Puppets, and that was a revelation. That was what I needed. That was like seriously the biggest moment of like the biggest explosion. Like, oh, that was it. I was hooked. Then I was into all of that shit. I mean, anything you could think of. I was trying to find it. Exodus. I got into Exodus mad early. I don't know, any kind of bands. So then we moved to Florida. Now I'm still listening to Metallica. It was hard for me to jump into to listening to other bands, but at that point when we moved to Florida, we had to get cable, so MTV was more readily available. Because in New York, it was like, I mean, we weren't used to having cable, so it just when we came to Florida, there was no local TV and our local TV thing wasn't the same anymore. So, cable. At Baker's Bowl was like a fucking revelation to me. But, so, I'm learning how to play my guitar. I'm playing, I'm basically, I had a homeboy, as a matter of fact, another homeboy I met, and he gave me another CD and showed me how to play to use the tablature books, because at that point it didn't dawn on me, each line represented a string, and then the numbers was the number of the frets. Another one of those moments. But he gave me another CD. This time it was a CD. And this was even heavier. It had but he gave me this a little bit later. So I'm learning how to play guitar, and it just so happened there was other band that was around. I didn't know at the time how connected to Metallica they were, but so this is you see the video, and you got these dudes, and they're like, I mean, there's a little on the Muffin Boys side. Now it seems that way, but at the time, they had these bullet belts, and of course I'm talking about Megadeth, and this is when they did Holy Wars. The fucking Jackson Kelly stood out. I was not only blown away by the music, but the guitar. I mean, I just couldn't, after seeing that and seeing them playing and hearing Marty Friedman's playing. I mean, Marty Friedman, fuck. The shit he did on that album alone. I mean, there's other albums he did, but just that one alone. I mean, you gotta think of that one, and then also super ill work was Metallica's Injustice. Those two right there are like, I mean, I know I started with Master of Puppets, but when I heard Justice, that was those two albums, and I really didn't know at the time how connected the bands were. But anyway, so fast forward a few years, I'm like 18. Didn't have a car yet, but I did, because of some circumstances dealing with my health. I did come into a little bit of money at the time. So first thing we did, I got my mom to drive me to Orlando, and two monumental things happened at the time. So the first thing is we went to a music store in Orlando, and I put in the order. Left-handed, because that's the other thing to this. I didn't mention that. I didn't mention the heartbreaking part about it, but It was left-handed, black, Jackson Kelly. It had, I believe it was EMGs. It did have the Floyd Rose, the shark fin inlays, reverse fucking headstock. Now, I need you to understand, I said the major word, left. When I started learning guitar, because I'm left-handed, it never dawned on me, learn right-handed, because I was starting from, I just figured it'd be easier for me because I'm left-handed. And this is what makes it so heartbreaking. Okay, so put in the order, $2,500. Now this is the thing why it's so heartbreaking, because it is so hard to come across a good, well, because I'm a metalhead. I love pointy guitars, you know what I mean? I've had BC Rich Warlocks, I've had Flying V's. Matter of fact, I'm playing Flying V right now. This is ridiculous because it just angered me. But anyway, to get like any kind of crazy shaped guitar, most of the time you have to go and specially order. So I spent $2,500 and got it. Now this took a few months for me to get it. So on one of the trips for the order, this is the other monumental thing about that. There was an in-store from a band at the time that I was really into by the name of Death. And I think this was on, I know the lineup, I didn't realize the whole lineup at the time, but it was definitely Chuck, because he was the one member I remembered the most. And it was Chuck, and then it was damn. Gene Hoglan. That was it. I don't know why I drew a blank for that name. But yeah, I know those are the two members I remembered. I believe Steve DiGiorgio was there as well. But they were doing the in-store, and I had an Ibanez. That's what I was playing. So I stood in line. It wasn't a really long line. I don't think people appreciated the history that was in front of us. But got my guitar signed. Then a few months later, I got my Jackson. So fast forward. I played my Jackson for a while. I had it for a little while. Then I get into a situation where it was like, it was a struggle at that point to find a job. So I was struggling. I couldn't find a job for shit. So unfortunately, I pawned my guitar. Now, it was a hard thing to do, but I really needed some cash. But I would go back and pay on it to keep extending the time there. And I was real cool with the guy up there. I was just trying to be real cool with him. Then 1 month, I wasn't late in the payments. There was no discrepancy in that. So just what happened 1 month, he decided, I guess, fuck this guy. He sold the shit from under me. My $2,500 custom ordered left-handed Jackson Kelly. It was sold from under me. That was one of the most heartbreaking things in my life, because one, not only was I going through a hard time because, like I said, struggling to find a job. You know, my guitar, my gem, gone. So that kind of sucked, and it was a real downer because I didn't have a guitar for for a few years after that. I think it was, yeah, maybe like 2 years. Because one, I was struggling to find a job, so at that point, it wasn't like, I didn't, because of my leg or my health problems, I didn't get a whole lot of money, but and I squandered some. But at that point, trying to find a job, I couldn't buy another guitar, and then being bummed about that. Eventually, I did get another one. I got another, like, sort of one of the ones I wanted for a long time too. Really surprised they had that. It was a BC Rich Warlock. So now we lead up to now, because of course, Strats, they're pretty much the standard, but I love crazy shaped guitars, you know what I mean? So eventually I got a Schecter Flying V. It was Jeff Loomis Schecter Flying V, and I've been rocking that for a few years. I love the guitar, but the problem is the headstock on the Schecters. It's this long, elongated sort of a headstock, almost like an Ibanez headstock. I love the winged ones. And I love X-shaped guitars and Explorer-shaped guitars. So we did get lucky when Ola England came up with the solar guitars, and he did the X and left-handed, which see, so we did get lucky with that. And see, the thing is, with me, like, going into a guitar store, it's crazy, right? Because it's like walking into a strip club and like 99 chicks line the back of the wall, and all but 2 have dicks. That's my relationship to a guitar store. So there's like only 2 guitars I can play whenever I go into a guitar store. I pulled that reference from one of those movies. Anyway, so yeah, it's always frustrating going to a guitar store. So it's like I'm always going there and say, like, the guitars I have at home are better than the ones they have here. Anyway, so my goal with this whole YouTube, and basically just trying to gain subscriptions so I can, 2 things I want to buy, especially for the channel, sort of do things for the channel. One is I need to get me a 7-string, is that left-handed 7-string Jackson Kelly. Jackson Kelly. Let me see. I pulled this image up. Let's see. This is the guitar. Now mine, of course, was black. Now this one is from Brandon Ellis. I don't want his particular model, but I do like some of the specs. Number 1, 7-string. Also longer scale length. That's one of the things I'm having a little bit of an issue with the transition from playing my Schecter V to the Solar. It's just a shorter neck. I'm used to a longer neck. Pause. Either way, my goal is to one. I'm trying to get subscribers, so I have a goal of 1,000 subscribers. I'm at 44, so got a long way to go. But you know, it's just, I do have a long way to go. But you know, first off, I'm psyched about the subscribers I have. That's mad ill. So I'm glad anybody want to watch or listen or do anything, have anything to do with me online. So that's number one. I would just like to get up to 1,000. You know, at that point, you know, I can start making a little bit of bread. And like I said, my first goal is Jackson Kelly. Ugh. And then I need to give me a PS5 because I want to put more up-to-date games on the channel as well. So, you know, it's like, hopefully I'll be able to get the subscribers, and you know, as soon as I can get this channel, you know, monetized and then make a little bit of bread. I got so many ideas and so many things I can do. Just need a little bit of bread to invest back into this so that I can do that. And I'm not the type of person to be like, yo, just hit the Cash App. I want to have something that you can purchase for me. Like, so I do have merch. I don't have it to where you can go online and order. You have to direct message me, and I have to do it per order basis. But I have merch. I also have an EP. Music's playing in the background, so you can always order that. It's like $9. So, you know, I have something to start. That's, you know, and then I have my videos. So I like that as an option as far as being something that I can give towards sort of to earn money, earn the right to even ask for money from people. So in that regard, that's what I want to do. You know, not to be like, yo, hit the Cash App, give me, donate. Now, if you want to, I would never say no. But then again, I don't have my Cash App attached to my profile or anything like that. So like I said, I'm not trying to gain like subscribers or shit like that. Anyway, if you watched this long, sorry for the long-winded friggin' story. Just to say, you know, I got my guitar fucking like in a pawn shop. Fucking, you know, they sold it from under me, and I'm trying to friggin' get subscribers so I can make money to buy a whole new guitar. Which again, I'm gonna have to get ordered, and we're looking at $4,500 to $5,000 to start. Anyway, anybody watching this long, maybe hit me with a subscribe. You know, just once. You know, maybe give me a recommendation. All right, yo, I'm out.